you guys did Masechet Eruvin. Masechet Eruvin is a very difficult Masechta. Every Masechta is difficult, but this is especially difficult because it forces you to think very abstract. It talks about different areas that you would not really think in the way that we think today, and you really need to be able to see things, and it teaches you how to see things differently. For example, well, there's only like 10 centimeters of a wall. Well, that's a wall is considered to be like this, right? Or if I put a string up, that's considered to be, it's like I have a brick wall all around me. It's very abstract concepts. Very, very helpful to be able to understand and to really a topic that it's really kind of neglected. Most people, and very few people, actually know Eruvin, the halachot of Eruvin. Needless to say, even learn it. But to really know it, as you can see, it's really amazing. And for me, Masechet Eruvin was a beyond just learning the Gemara or learning the halacha, which we did years before. We did reverse order. We learned the halacha and then we learned the Gemara. And I think it was somewhat helpful because you're dealing with things that you don't know. It was just beautiful. I found it to be very beautiful because it made you think, and I like to think abstract, and that's something that it's unique to us because we are very concrete. Unfortunately, we are very concrete, but for good or bad. However, there's another reason why Masechet Eruvin is very difficult, because Masechet Eruvin talks about domains. Territories, domains, knowing the boundaries. And that is something that we are very bad at. We don't know how to define boundaries. Needless to say, we don't know how to stay within the boundaries. Knowing your boundaries is defining your abilities. The only way for us to progress is if I define my playing field and then I give it everything I can and then I move on further and further. Masechet Eruvin is difficult. But for those of you who finished that, it's amazing. I remember the first few times I did Masechet Eruvin, I tell you, I did it about 4 times. I went to Daf Yud, I went back. And then again, I went to Daf Yud, I went back. I don't know, it just so happens. I did it so many times, back and forward, because sometimes I would stop here, sometimes I would stop there. And it took me to so many different places that I didn't even know, especially when we're talking about the wall, the doors of Bet HaMikdash, and it's just a wonderful thing, which is a continuation of Masechet Shabbat. And Masechet Shabbat being all about knowing your boundaries and understanding that you basically have the whole entire playing field, but yet it's defined by boundaries, knowing about how much you can do. For me, it was just a beautiful, wonderful continuation right into Masechet Eruvin. Yes, I didn't do it one time. I did it about 4 different segments, stop and go, stop and go. But then once you go into it, it's just really, really amazing. So for those of you guys who did that, it was really amazing. A tremendous yashar koach to all of you, because by you knowing how to define boundaries, how to see the invisible walls, how to see the real world walls and the invisible wall, would really help you help others to overcome sometimes things that would seem a little bit of a wall in front of them. He says, no, don't worry, that's not a wall, that's not or that's a mechitza, or that's not a mechitza, and what's good and what's bad, and so on and so forth. So tremendous thing that you're doing. When Eytan learned it, and then Zalman and Sam did it, every day at night, learning together, which is a tremendous way to learn, and wonderful to learn bechevruta, to learn those masachtot. So I really want to, first of all, congratulate all of you, especially those who finished, and all of us that are here learning that. And hopefully we'll be able to go further up to other masachtot, and to continue coming here learning every single day, both in the morning and at night. In the morning we have a tremendous groups of guys learning here. And I got to tell you something. Learning at night is terrific. I mean, we learn well. We're learning some wonderful topics, some wonderful halachot, some wonderful gemarot as well. But I got to tell you, for the guys in the morning, had made such a leap into the quality of learning that, and especially, I mean, you did it gradually all the time, but But I feel that since Rosh Hashanah this year, you guys just simply jolted all the way up. The way you are learning and the method you are learning and the mefarshim that you use, I can tell you this, I'm just very proud of you. I'm very proud of you, and I see myself very fortunate to have the opportunity to be able to kick your rear ends, to continue doing more. So in this happy note, I'm going to call, who's going to call? Zalman, Sam, or Eytan? Sam, Chavod, yalla, Sam.
Lead off better. Alright.
Come on, Sammy. Oops.
Hello everyone. With the permission of the Rav, Rashut, my father, and everyone in Yeshiva, to let me speak on something I had in mind. And I feel like the Rav read my mind because, as the Rav said, this is a very abstract Gemara, so I'm thinking throughout the Shabbat, this morning, the time I had, what am I going to speak about? There's so many complex laws, so many different cases in this entire Gemara, so how can I exactly, put it all together and make any sense of it? And I realized maybe that was the whole point, this whole Gemara is in a way like speaking about life in itself, because life is also about so many different cases and how you are supposed to apply the rules that are brought down. We know the rules of what makes a Reshut Harabim, Reshut Echid, Karmelit, and Makom Bator, but sometimes we have a case where you're allowed to carry between one and to the other, or you're not, depending on what day it is, a Shabbat or something. It's just so many. You got to write it down, and you have to apply every case. It's unique to its own, and this is kind of represent. That's a big highlight in that you have to first see what's how do I say it like this? You have to first understand what are the rules, what are the boundaries, and then apply it to specific cases. So I'm thinking what a Gadata can help me understand this a little bit better. So I found one in Daf Chaf Aleph Bet. It expounds on a verse in Shir Hashirim. Let me just find it for a second. It says, Hadodeim natnu reach al petechenu kol magadim hadashkim gam yeshanim dodi tifnatni lacha. The violets emit a fragrance, and our doors are all fine fruits, new ones as well as old ones. My beloved, I have hidden for you. So it goes on to explain what does it mean, my new ones as well as my old ones, and it's a reference to the Torah itself. In that let me just bear with me for 1 second. I want to get it right so I don't misrepresent it. I had it right here. Okay, so Rav Chazda asked a certain rabbi who would arrange the Agada before him, have you heard to what the verse new ones as well as old ones refers to? He said, yes. These are the more lenient commandments and these are the more stringent commandments. Rav Chazda said to him, was the Torah given in stages so that some of its commandments can be referred to as new and others as old? The Torah was given in one shot. How is they're all the same in age, right? The meaning is everything's the right. It's all in one book. So rather, these old ones are referring from the Torah, which was given at Har Sinai, while the new ones are the laws deriving from the words of the sages, the Rabbanan. So Hashem obviously couldn't put the whole, everything in one book because that would have been for, as you could see, this library of in thousands of this, you can't put that all in one Torah. So he knew that, the Chachamim have to come in and start teaching the people, okay, case by case basis, and that's referring. That is the boundaries of life itself to show. Okay, Hashem just gave us the rules, the definition of what this is, and it's up to us to decide what the case is, and in order to live our life according to what is the true life of Torah and Mitzvot. So with that, I want to say that even though sometimes it seems complicated to know what is right, what is wrong, when should I just follow the halacha from what it says, or when should I go a little bit beyond it? You know, because certain cases you should do what the halacha says straight out. Certain cases you should do a little bit more, be a little bit. You know, it's more beneficial to go a little bit above and beyond. And certain times when you know the halacha very well, you could do something that to others might seem like you're being very lenient, but really you're doing it because you know it so well that you know the boundaries. You know, like, I'm not gonna say, because then you're gonna, people who don't know the halacha are gonna start doing it on Shabbat or something. Wink, wink. You know what I'm talking about? One a certain halacha, but you understand that there's set ways of learning the halacha, so it's very complicated. It's a lifelong process, and this is why we have to continue learning Torah, because Hashem wants to see us that we're at least trying to understand life itself through the study of Torah, and by continuing this, we're showing Hashem that we're not taking this for granted. We want to do our best, and you know, this is what you gave us, and we're going to do what we can with it. So with that said, I'd like to thank the Rabbi and everyone else for, you know, supporting me in my Torah learning, and always inspiring me to do the best I can, and helping me, you know, learn life each day. So thank you very much.
Z, Mr. Z. יעלה ויבוא. יעלה ויבוא.
This is Leon Nishmat. What was the name? Amnun Ben Istam and Refuah Shalema, Ariel Mazal, and Nisan Ben Sarah. Alright, so we're going to shoot the Rav and everyone here.
The academy.
Like the academy. Like the Rav said, like Sam said, this is a very complex Masechta. There's a lot of things going on. There's measurements, dimensions, of course many arguments. But there's many different topics that span many different concepts. One interesting story that I remember reading, and I have to look back on just to understand it a little bit more, was on 53b. It was with Rav Yehoshua. He was walking along a path, and he sees a fork in the road. So he's trying to decide which way to go, as a lot of us usually are, right? And he sees a little boy sitting there, and he asks the boy, "Where do I go? Which direction should I go?" He says, "Well, if you go on this road, it's short and long, but if you go on this one, it's long and short."
One of my favorite stories.
So where does he go? He goes to the short one, because, well, it's short. So he goes down, he's walking down, and then he hits a field and an orchard, and there's nowhere else to go. It's like, I don't understand. This is supposed to be the path. Where am I supposed to go? He goes back to the boy, he's like, "What happened?" He said, "There was a path." He said, "It was short. What happened?" He's like, "Yeah, I said it was short, but I also said it was long. The path itself is short, but it ended up being longer for you." Meaning what? If you would have went to the other path, yeah, it may have looked like it's much longer, but in the end, it's going to save you time. Why? Because you don't have to go back and forth. And what is this a lesson? It's a lesson for us in life, of course, right? Like everything else is in the Torah. We sometimes try to take these shortcuts. We think, oh, this is the easy path, right? We just go to it, right? Much easier. Why would I go the long way when I could just go this way? It's so clearly shorter. That's not always the case. Sometimes you're going to have to go back, and it's going to be even longer than if you just started from the beginning. That's a very important lesson. Also, as I'm going through the Masechet trying to figure out what to say, yesterday in our campfire we had a conversation about, yeah, thank you guys for all the commentary, about community and how community is very important, and sometimes we feel like it's hard to find the community, it's hard to be part of one, but it's interesting because that's part of what Eruvin is. Not on the surface, but if you go a little bit deeper. Because it's literally talking about building the walls of a community, right? What it's considered a community, what's not considered, what's private, what's shared.
Good thing I didn't say it, because I was about to say it, but good thing I didn't say it.
Thank you. What's public, right? So that all encompasses it, right? Just diverging for a little bit, but I promise it's related. In Vayera, I know it's a while ago, but it's fine, it's still relevant. It talks about how Abraham, when the angels were coming, he goes out to greet them, he brings them in, he's very hospitable to them, gives them everything they need. And and then afterwards, like when Hashem's describing Avraham, he says, I want to tell him what's going to happen, right? But I don't know if I can. But when he's describing Avraham, he describes him as he's one who gives tzedakah and umishpat, right? Charity and judgment, right? Those two. Then, so I was reading some commentary to Rav Hirsch, and Rav Hirsch was saying that those two have to go together. You can't have one and the other, or the other. You have to have them both. And how do we see this? Because what comes next in the Torah after this? It talks about Sodom. Sodom only had one of them. Which one did they have? They only had judgment. So all they did was judgment. This is what's right. We think it's right, it's right. That's it. There's no going anywhere else. What's yours is yours, what's mine is mine. We're not sharing. Right? There was no loving kindness. Justice without benevolence is just cold and empty. And right, to be helpless over there was to commit a crime. To be poor was despised. And it was, it might be just, right? That's justice, but it's not love. It's not kindness, and it's not right? That whole thing, it's the opposite of what Avraham was. Bringing it back to Eruvin, right, on 49a, there's a concept that talks about restricting others, right? That's something that you can do. What do I mean by that? That is, if you're not allowed to carry in your own chatzer, and you have to pass through, or somebody has to pass through, you could actually restrict other people from carrying in there too. So now what happens is your fault becomes the fault of everybody else. And then they say there's a concept where if you make your own eruv, right, and I mean with food, not just the wire, but if you make your own eruv, which could be perfectly legal to do, in that case, you could not allow others to walk through it, right? And that's a problem, because while that was legal, you're now excluding other people. That loving kindness is gone. So in the Gemara, it actually compares it to stone. They say that not only is it necessary to be loving and kind, it's not only it's a good thing to be, it's necessary. So they say the courts would actually make the person not make that eruv so that everyone could be part of it. They would require it, because it's not just something nice to do. We have to do it, and we have to remember that in life. Sometimes we think, oh, I could choose to be nice. You could choose to be nice, and that'll be a good thing to do, right? But no, you should be nice. That's what you should be doing. That's how we should live. Exactly. So we are a community, and we're responsible to act like one. It's our job, right? Another point in the Gemara, I promise you, this is the last one. Yeah? You don't want to come? Okay. So another point in a concept that's discussed is a tchum, and how you have 2,000 amot from where your home is to walk, right? Outside of the city. So a question was asked, and like you know, as Jews we try to find loopholes of what we could do to the limit, and we're talking about boundaries, right? So what's our boundary, right? How can we extend this as much as possible? And what they're saying is if you take food and you put it somewhere, that extends your boundary, right? So if I wanted to go somewhere that was pretty far, I could just put food in the middle. That's considered my home. And then from there I could walk my 2,000 amot. So just bear with me on this. Food is we could compare Torah to food. How? Because Torah is sustenance. We gain spiritually from it, right? Now, it provides nourishment for our soul. That means the Torah is our home. And that's here, right? In this building, right here. This is our home. And it's not only about the building, it's about the community and the Torah values. So it's not, this is our building, this is our home, anywhere else we go, that's not it. Torah moves with us.
Sounds like this is my gun, this is...
Yeah, could be. So we could be here, we could be there, but wherever we are, we always have Torah, and that's where our home is. So we could be moving, we could be somewhere, we were somewhere else before, but now we came here, this is our home, this is our Torah, right? So I want to thank this community for allowing us to be here to learn, and especially to Rav Gaon, who provides us and encourages us to build our spiritual homes and extend them. And we have a big library here. We have to complete it. We're chipping it away slowly. But yeah, so thank you for everyone. Thanks for the encouragement.
Thank you.
It was definitely a lot of work, but we pushed through it, and if I could do it, anybody else could do it. Believe me.
Zalman and Sam, what's next for you? One second, before you continue, you have to tell me today why you're going to continue. Today, not tomorrow, today, so tomorrow you can start.
Alright, I have a lot to follow. I have a lot to follow up on now. You know, we have the two Bachrim here. They gave some great words of wisdom. Okay, so Eruvin, I feel like a lot of our points overlap. You know, there's only so many concepts we can kind of draw from this, like, I guess, kind of abstract concept of an Eruv and drawing it into our personal lives. And everyone mentioned already community and boundaries. You know, like those are like that's the juicy stuff. So I'm gonna see like what I can really pull out that will help. I guess, you know, pique everyone's interest a little more. Yeah, a little more. All right, fine. So in Eruvin we have.
Because we're Thursday.
Yeah, but that's true. Yeah. So in Masechet Eruvin, there's 3 types of Eruvs that are discussed throughout the Masechet. First one is Eruv Tavshilin, and pretty much, you know, the Eruv that allows you to sorry, thirsty. That allows you to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbat, and that you can prepare from one day to the next. The second was Eruv Tchumen, which is like Zalman mentioned, you know, that allows you to travel to a certain, you know, extent throughout the city or past the city, whichever it may be. And the third was Eruv Chatzirot, which allows, you know, people, which is really like the Eruv that we worry about today, you know, whether or not it's up, not up, that allows you to actually carry, you know, throughout the local, you know, premises. So, and also for all 3 of these Eruvs, you have to make a bracha on each one. I didn't know that. You know, I really wasn't, I mean, I've never really partaken in, like, you know, setting up like a big Eruv or anything. And it was just when I read that today, I'm like, wow, like I didn't know you say a bracha on making an Eruv. You know, it's pretty cool. I know I did it for Eruv Tavshilin before, but I don't know, it slipped my mind. So the actual words, what's the whole Masechet? What's it called? It's called Eruvin, right? So what does Eruv actually mean? We just look like, oh, Eruv, that's like the strings, right? Eruv actually means blending or intermingling. I mean, I'm sure like no one probably knew that. And maybe I didn't know that. I don't know if anyone else really knew that. So just, you know, so it's like just from hearing the word Eruv or Eruvin, it doesn't really give the full picture of like what's going on. So again, like we kind of know the common Eruv, the Eruv Chatzirot. The main thing is that whether or not we can carry or push, you know, throughout, you know, the local domains. And now that would be a Isur if maybe there's no Eruv up. We're not going to go into detail so much, but I wrote that these domains, their classification doesn't really refer to actual ownership. You know, an Eruv is not ownership of a domain. It refers to the nature of the area itself. You know, with Reshut HaRabim, Reshut HaYachid, it's not an ownership. It's like if this is no longer considered a place where people go, that can completely change the entire status of this area when it comes to, you know, terms of what an Eruv is. So it's not that it had to transfer anything, which is just a pretty interesting concept. So like one thing can really change. It's the same way if someone makes a neder, something goes from like mutar to asur. It could be, you know, vice versa. It seems like it would be similar with an Eruv, or an area that would require an Eruv or not. Okay. Okay, so now how do you solve these issues? You know, whether or not I can carry somewhere, you know, whether or not maybe there's an Eruv, not an Eruv. And the definition of an Eruv is pretty much like a technical enclosure that surrounds both private and public domains. Creating a large private domain in which carrying is permitted. So when an Eruv comes into fruition, it's not it's not like, okay, now I can carry, now I can't carry. It said we're taking two separate domains and we're turning them into one private domain, which is a very interesting concept, especially because this is, due to Shabbat. And the whole idea of the Eruv, when it's turning everything into one private domain that we all have this equal ownership in, that's like a very, it kind of aligns pretty well with the idea of Shabbat, in terms of, getting closer to Hashem, getting closer to the people around you, more of the whole idea of Achdut, So it's like, now it's like we have a shared space. It doesn't matter my house, your house, it's that we have a shared space right now, which I thought was a pretty cool concept, when it came to all this. So, yes, okay, a large private domain, creates, Achdut, commonality on Shabbat. So Rav Shimshon Pincus writes in his book on Sefer, on Shabbat, he writes that nowadays, as technology advanced and constantly advances furthermore, we all have a lot of dreams and a lot of aspiration to travel horizontally. We all want to go further and see more things throughout the world. But he says, no, when it comes to Shabbat, and I thought this ties especially well with the concept of Eruv, when you can't travel further. When it comes to Shabbat, we should want to travel vertically instead. Go from here all to Shemayim in everything that we do. So that works well with Eruvin, which encloses us and captures us into a single, area. So I just thought that was very nice, especially when it comes to the Kedusha of Shabbat. And then, now we know with the Eruv, sometimes you can run into some issues, whether or not maybe there was weather that knocked it down, or just wasn't put up well, or construction knocked it down, whatever it may be. So another one thing I was reading, there's an important lesson in Nun Daled Amud Bet. It says here that I'm just trying to find exactly where it started. It said, so there's a discussion how pretty much everyone heard the words of the Torah 4 times before it got transmitted to the Jews. So first, Hashem, you're gonna say that one?
No, I just prepared that.
So first, so Moshe heard it from Hashem, and then Aaron came in, and then the elders came in, and Aaron stayed there, and it ended up that everyone heard pretty much their portions of the Torah 4 times. So it says. So it says, so I'm just finding the spot. Gets his Mikan Amar Eliezer. Okay. Okay, here. Mikanama Rabbi Eliezer. From here, Rabbi Eliezer inferred that Chayav Adam Lishnot L'Talmido Arba Pamim. A person is chayav to repeat every lesson he learns, to his students 4 times. We're learning this from Moshe, from how everything was passed down. The Kal V'chomer, so even more so, the Kal V'chomer, Ma Aaron Shalamad Mipi Moshe. If Aaron, Aaron, who's literally Kohen Gadol, had to learn it from Moshe 4 times. Kal v'chomer, Moshe mipi hagvura, because Moshe had learned from the mouth of Hashem. Kach, in this way, hedut mipi hedut. Then an ordinary person learns from the mouth of an ordinary person. How much more so does he have to learn it more than 4 times? At least 4 times, everything he's learning to actually comprehend. So it says Rabbi Kiva Omer, Minan shechayav adam l'shnot hamidah ad sheyilamdenu. Rabbi Akiva says, from where do we know that a person has to repeat each lesson to students till he knows it? It says, and teach it, to the children of Israel. And from where do we know that he has to repeat the lesson until it's fluent in their mouth? It says, you have to place it in their mouths. You have to make your students. Sorry if I'm giving you more work. You have to make sure that your students.
Don't worry, we've gone into the 100 times of it. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. So it says you have to make sure that your students are comprehending. And it says from where do we know that a teacher has to teach the students the reasons for the mitzvot? This is a big one. I know that there's one thing to teach, but now there's to teach and to understand what's behind it, the actual reasoning. It says, "Shenamar ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lefnehem." It says, and these are the judgments which you shall put before them. When it doesn't say teach them, it says put before them. It says put before them because you have to understand what you're doing. We can't be like robots. That's how people get burnt out. That's when, you feel like you're not connected to your Torah and your mitzvahs. So exactly, how important is it for us not to just be blind and be like sheep, to what we do daily, but we have to seek and to learn. And the more you learn, you'll come to appreciate, the Torah and the mitzvot so much more. And I remember, okay, I'm pretty much done, just 1 second. It says, this was actually a story that happened to me personally. This was about, 7.5 years ago, maybe close to 8, when I just started coming to the yeshiva. And I remember asking the Rav one time, I said, Rabbi, what do I do? Everyone says if you learn Torah, it's going to solve all your problems. I'm sure a lot of us have heard that. But so my question is, what if what I don't want to do is learn Torah? So how is me learning Torah gonna make me want to learn more Torah? So the Rav told me an answer. He said, so fine, take a step back. Don't learn right now, but think, what is it that's preventing you from wanting to learn? And coming to the root of the problem. And that was a big thing that obviously stuck with me throughout all these years. And that's the whole idea. It's not just like taking everything head on. It's so important to take that step back, the introspection, think about what, and that goes back to like what we're just doing, going for the reasoning behind what we do, and how we live our lives and everything we're trying to accomplish. So our job, is to nurture our desire for Torah and Kedusha. If we show Hashem that we want it, He's going to reciprocate more, more than we can ever imagine. And it all starts with our mindset. We need to start the momentum, and once we start the momentum, you start accomplishing many small tasks throughout the day. The things only get bigger and bigger of what we can accomplish. And I heard one small thing in Lech Lecha, which was a few weeks ago. It says how Avram, he went. Avram went. So it says like Avram was like a nomad. But the whole idea, don't be a nomad in life. You have to be a yes mad. You have to say yes to things. Say yes to things that takes you out of your comfort zone. That you won't normally do. And when you do that, you're gonna see what you can accomplish is things you never imagined. All right.
Like that. Come to the Siyum. We have to daven Arvit and then we have to eat. Yalla.
I'm on the last one. So wherever you guys are.
We're like, I think we're over here. Yeah, wait, hold on. I think we're yeah, you may have to. No, wait a minute. The full measure for those who learn. I don't think we did that one.
Alright, so now finishing the Gemara.
Alright, the Gemara discusses the first part of Rav Shimon's statement in the Mishnah. Rav Shimon Omer. Rav Shimon says, the Gemara explains that Rav Shimon is not referring to the issues of our Mishnah, but rather to an earlier Mishnah. Rav Shimon Heicha Kai Hatam Kai. What is Rav Shimon referring to? He's referring to the ruling he gave there in the Mishnah above. The Tnan, for we learned in the Mishnah, Misha Shichachut leTchum. One who was overtaken by darkness while he's still outside the Tchum boundary of his destination, Afilu Alma Echad, even by only one Amma, Lo Yikanes, may not enter the Tchum. Rav Shimon Omer, Afilu Chamesh Asera Amma Yichnes. Rav Shimon says, even if he is 15 amot away from the city's Tchum, he may enter. Lefi Ein HaMashchot, Matzi'in Et HaMidot. For the surveyors who place markers to delineate the city's Tchum, do not give the full measure, Mifnei Hatoim, because of those who err. The Kamar Tana Kama Lo Yikanes. The Tanakama of the Mishnah said that he may not enter the Tchum. Amar Le Rabbi Shimon Yikanes. And Rabbi Shimon said to him that he may indeed enter because they merely gave you what is rightfully yours. In other words, there's not a leniency in the restriction of the Tchum, but rather we are allowing him to use what is rightfully his anyways, since the extra 15 amot are actually within 2,000 amot of the city.
Well, whatever you want.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, fine. The Gemara now explains the second part of the Rabbi Shimon's statement. Shelo hitru lecha elav mashum shavud. For they have not permitted you to perform a biblical violation in the temple, only that which is prohibited by rabbinic decree. Heichakai, what is Rabbi Shimon referring to? Chatam Kei, he is referring to the ruling given there concerning a harp string that broke in the temple. The Kamar Tane Kama Kishura, for the Tana Kama said that one may tie a broken harp string with a regular knot. Amar Le Rabbi Shimon Anova, and Rabbi Shimon said to him, one may tie with a bow, but not a regular knot, because they have not permitted you to perform a biblical violation in the temple, only that which is the Rabbanan. Therefore, tying a regular knot, which is a biblical violation, is prohibited even in the temple. The Gemara explains Rabbi Shimon's position further. Oh, you want to take this off?
Anivad lo atelidei chiyuv chatat shorei Rabbanan says when you tie a bow, which cannot lead to a chatat obligation, even if it's intended to be permanent, it's mutar d'Rabbanan in the temple. But it says kshira atelidei chiyuv chatat lo shorei Rabbanan. But tying a regular knot, even a temporary one, which can lead to a chatat, making a chayav for chatat, one forgets himself and ties it permanently, he's not chayav d'Rabbanan in the temple. Hadran Allah, Masechet, Eruvin. Hadran Allah, Masechet Eruvin, V'adrach Halan, Datan Allah, Masechet Eruvin, V'adrach Halan, Lot and Shem Menach, Masechet Eruvin, V'lot and Shem Menach, Lo Balma Hadin, V'lo Balma Hadate. Yiraton Flanach Adonai Lein, V'lotenu, Shetei, V'adecha, V'lotenu, V'olam Hazeh, Otei, Emenu, V'olam Abba, Hanina Bar Papa, Rami Bar Papa, Nachman Bar Papa, Achiyed Bar Papa, Abba Marmi Bar Papa, Rafdana Bar Papa, Rakshi Bar Papa, Shurchocha Bar Papa, Da Bar Papa, Dara Bar Papa, Erev Na, Adonai Lehinu, Ed Devrei, Toratacha, B'fneinu, B'vod, Amacha B'Yisrael, Anachnu V'etzeinu, Tzei Lamecha, B'Yisrael, Kolanu Yodei Shmecha, V'ladei Toratel L'Shmon, V'alei Techakmeni, Mitzvotecha, Ki Mi'olam, Hi Lebi, Kamim, D'Vekacham, Alaman Lo Avesh, Alam Lo L'Shach, V'Techa, Ki Vam, Baruch Atah Adonai, Lamdeini Ukecha, Amen, 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 Selah Ve'ed. Modim Anachnu Lefnach Adonai Eloheinu V'levatenu, Sh'Shamtach L'Kenu B'Shvei Beit HaMikdash V'lo Tzatach L'Kenu B'Shvei Koronot, Sh'aninu Meshkimim, V'heim Meshkimim, Anu Meshkimim, B'Drei Torah, V'heim Meshkimim, B'Drim B'Yilitim, Anu Mevilim, V'heim Mevilim, Anu Mevilim, V'Drim Sachar, V'heim Mevilim, V'Drim Sachar, Anu Ritzim, V'heim Ritzim, Anu Ritzim, V'chei Olam Haba, V'heim Ritzim, V'rei Shachat Shemar, Ata L'him T'V'rei Shachat L'Shem Tamim, V'Mal Chol, V'hem B'Avi, Avatach Bach. Yiraton F'nach Adonai, Keshem Sh'Shaten L'Shem Masechet Eruvin, Ki Tarzeni L'Chiyuv, Masechet L'Sherim, L'Sherim L'Sherim, L'Omed L'Omein, L'Shmor L'Sod, L'Krim, Et Kol Devrei Talmud, Tartacha B'Ava, L'Chod Kol Tanim, L'Omrim, Talmidei Chachamim, Yamad Li Uzri, L'Shalot Tamush HaTorah, Mebi Zera, Zera Zeri, Ad Allah, L'Tzekeim Bi, B'Tachat, L'Heotach, L'Shmor Alecha, V'Tai Hi T'Shechecha, Hi Bi Yerbu Yamelech, Yisafim Lach, Shmol Chaim, Or Chamim Be'Amim, B'Shlava, Asher V'Kod, Adonai Uzentein, Adonai Rech Amo B'Shalom.